Welcome everybody to TV Toastmasters Thursday night meeting. We've got a few speakers, we've got a guest, we've got a special visit and insight from our area director. So let me go around a couple of those things. Area director is Angel, please pronounce your last name. Luerman. 3 syllables, right? I'll try to remember that. Angel Luerman, and what we're going to do after the meeting is go through moments of truth for your area director visit with a couple of the officers, correct? Great. She's on the ball. I'm just repeating it. She set it all up. And we've got a guest, Aaron. Aaron, would you spell your last name for me?
H-P-A-G-E.
Oh, that's an easy one. Thank you. Welcome, Aaron. We're glad you joined us. And Aaron's agreed to be the timer for us today. We'll have 2 speakers. We'll have table topics. We'll have moments. We'll have Pathways Education moment. Carol, is that going to be a part of the meeting from here on out? We'll touch on some way pathways.
Signed up. No, it doesn't have to be.
Okay, so it'll be a filler, but it'll be information that you're bringing from the Pathways base camp to help us education one.
If we need to only have 2 speakers, if she's going to be doing the pathways, then we need only 2 speakers.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you very much. And I think with all that, we're ready to turn it over to our Toastmaster of the day, Veronica Sanford.
Welcome. For those of you who are watching on TV, we are at 7850 5 Mile Road in Anderson Township at the Anderson Community Center downstairs on Thursdays at 6 o'clock. We actually start about 6:20 because we have the cameraman, Alexander, who's so kind enough to help us. And then on Saturdays at 10 a.m. upstairs. I would now like to welcome the grammarian, Carol Cromwell.
Until I get up here so I take my time. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, and I wanted to especially welcome Aaron again. We have 2 words of the day today. They are printed on your agenda, which will help you remember them. The first word is flaunt, and the second one is flout. And you use flaunt to describe actions of people who like to show off. You use flout to describe the actions of people who openly defy authority or rules, such as Sean.
How'd you know?
I've been around you. So you use flout to describe Sammy visited us last week so that he could show off his new BMW. He proceeded to flout to ignore the local regulations by parking in the fire lane directly in front of the community center entrance. So the memory key, if you flout something, you operate out, O-U-T, O-U-T, outside the law. And if you flaunt, F-L-A-U-N-T, you want, W-A-N-T, to show off. And so I always say, if you've got it, flaunt it, somebody's going to want it. And that is my word of the day. And the challenge is to use it when you come up to the lectern. Either one of them gets credit for using the word of the day. And I do count your ahs and ums and so's, all the killer filler words. Madam Toastmaster.
We now go into one of my favorite parts of the meeting, which is table topics. And Suzanne Whitrock is going to be asking us questions on this for us to answer on the spur of the moment, and hopefully more eloquently than I did. Please welcome Suzanne Whitrock.
All right, thank you. All right, I am flaunting this beautiful bag here, and I'm so flout about it. I don't know if I just said that right or not. Okay, table topics. This is going to be hopefully fun for everybody. I will ask somebody to come up and pull an object out of this bag. There's all kinds of little things in there. And then you have to explain to us what it is. But when you explain it to us, you're explaining it to us because we are all sitting out there We are all aliens. We have no clue what's going on in this world. So when you bring out the object, you have to explain to us what this means. And we, as aliens, we actually even ask a question. Throw it out and say, and why is that? Or what does that mean? All right. First person, let's see, we have Veronica.
I was trying to volunteer somebody else.
Okay. Let's see, what are you getting?
I'm ready.
Yes.
Welcome, fellow aliens. I have in front of me a slice of a tree. Trees grow on planet Earth, all different species. Cut into this slice of tree is an image of a bird. Birds fly in the air, most of them. This particular bird, I believe, is a penguin. Penguins can't fly. Most of them live in very cold south or north part of our country, of our world. I believe they only live in the south, although there are some in Africa, which is another continent on our planet. It's decorative. As far as I can tell, the only possible real reason besides art is to use this as a coaster. If we put it on our table, it's too pretty for that. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I turn it back over to you. I will leave this here so that nobody else picks it.
Yes. All right. Okay, next person I'm going to pick is Alexander. Just FYI, he has no clue about this.
No,
I was
didn't
not.
even know she was doing this.
Yeah. All right, pick
All right,
one.
pick one. Jesus Christ. Oh, come on. Can the camera see that? It's a thing.
What is the thing?
It's a paper. Okay, what is the thing? That's right. How do you know what it is?
I'm psychic.
All right. So this is a paper clip.
What's a paper?
So paper is something that we use to, normally we write on it. And writing is a way of communication without verbal means.
What's verbal?
You gonna do this to me the whole time? So verbal communication is how I'm communicating to you right now, is through my mouth, and speaking, which is done verbally. Speaking is done verbally. Don't even try. The other form of communication would be written communication, which is done on paper, such as this paper here, which has been written on. This can be translated into verbal communication. So when you have a lot of these papers, for whatever reason, and you have to put them all together, you can use a paper clip to clip them together and fasten them securely. This paper clip is gold. Gold is, when people see gold in, not the United States, in the world, it's usually representative of something valuable. So in this case, this would be a luxury paper clip, I guess you could say. And yeah, paper clip. Thank you.
So glad I know what this is now. Woohoo! All right. Next person. Let's see. I will have Aaron come up, and I hope he can flaunt whatever it is he's pulling out of the bag here.
Somebody else has to be the heckler. I'm not doing it this time. You can ask questions.
Okay. This flag is made of material. It is used to perhaps flaunt your favorite color in front of people. It is also, for those of you who are uninformed, used to
get dirt out of your hair after four-wheeling. Very common, popular use for that. Very utilitarian tool. This is also helpful for blowing your nose after vacuuming when the dust is kicked up.
Vacuuming, what is that?
Vacuuming is cleaning your house with a machine that sucks up the dirt and dust and blows it back in the air for you to breathe, like so. And with that, I will pass.
Just as a side note, I was going to send this over to Europe to my nephew, but I don't know if I'll do that now. Okay. All right. Okay, so next, we still have some goodies here in the bag, and if we still have time, I would love for Angel to come up.
Goodies, huh?
Yes.
Oh,
Hey, that's mine.
no, right now it's mine. I love these things, these gadgets, I call them. Fidget spinners. What's a fidget spinner? When you fidget, when you have nothing to do, you don't know what to do with your hands, you need to fidget. Some people fidget with a pen or a nose blower or a fidget spinner. And these are kind of neat because you can do it with one hand if you got bigger hands, or you can do it with two hands. Not tried it with my feet yet.
What's the purpose? I mean, what's...
It's to keep your mind occupied. You know, those that have busy minds need to keep them busy.
What's a mind?
Very good. A mind is something that we use to organize our thoughts, our ideas, and verbally communicate them or write them down. So fidget spinners, recommended for everyone who has a busy mind.
Thank you very much. All right, are we out of time? Thank you. All right, thank you. Grabbing all these alien, oh, I was, see if you noticed that.
Thank you. You're good. Thank you so much, Suzanne. That was novel. I've never seen it done before. Loved it. Really made us think. There's no right or wrong answer in table topics. It just gives us a chance to laugh at ourselves and laugh with each other. I would now like to introduce Carol Cormelink. She is going to be giving us the situations. Please welcome Carol Cormelink.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, and I hope everyone is as thrilled about the pathways as I am, and I am going to have this chart with me that I will mount on the board or as foam board, as Angel suggested, so that we can have it at every meeting, and you will see the 10 pathways. You choose which one you want to do. I'm on visionary communication, and I will be making a list of everyone keeping track of their progress that they're making on the pathways. Not everyone in TV Toastmasters has signed up, and as soon as we get everyone signed up, we shouldn't need to have this encouraging moment that we will be knowing what we're doing. And you'll see that I'm in 4 clubs, so I get quite a few speaking opportunities, and I am on level 3. Sean, I know he's done different things. He's in 2 clubs, and I only have what he did here, but I will be keeping track for you that you know where you are, because I was trying to find out where I was. And if you don't have all of your projects and have the dates and where you did them, you may not know where you are in pathways, because I did the icebreaker 3 times. You don't have to do it once. So that is my pathways. I also have, if you have a problem getting into pathways, I also have this list that lists all the projects on the back of my other big sheet here. This came from China. I believe it was District 60 that they had this, and Michael Pope made it this big, and I'm going, oh, that's great. We can have a better choice of, most everything is communication. There's a few that are more leadership. Most everyone has a blog. I thought it was just a couple but most every pathway has a blog as one of your electives, but it depends on what pathway you're on. Your blog will be different than my blog. If you're doing leadership and mine is visionary communication, our blogs, we have the same project, but our content will be different. I think it's wonderful. I've learned, I did the speech on leadership. I thought there were two types of leaders. One, I'm a benevolent dictator or a director. You do it my way or the highway. And I found out there are 8 types of leadership. So this was a new learning. I'm learning so much new that I'm thrilled with this, and I hope you all are too. Madam Toastmaster.
Please welcome Carol Cormeling for her first speech of the day. I only had one introduction. I read the one I got from you.
Okay. Communication. How we communicate with people gives them a good or a bad impression of us. Me being direct, I don't always say things as tactfully as I could have. For instance, I may say, "Your face is so ugly, it would stop a clock." Or I could say, "Time stands still while I gaze into your eyes." They both say the same thing, but one, you would say, "Oh, wow, that's pretty good." Or the other one, you go, "What's the matter with her today?" I have been reading Ethel Cotton's Conversation Studies. This is from 1964. It is really good. And I was called on one thing that she brought out in here when I said ask. I didn't say ask and emphasize the D. It was like ASKT is how it was pronounced when I did it. And pronunciation is very important, as we learned in our Toastmaster magazine from last month. So the definition of the direct person suits me to a T. See if you think so. This style is decisive, competitive, independent, and confident. Because a person with a direct communication style is focused, results-oriented, ambitious, goal-oriented, and driven, others may perceive her as strong-willed or demanding. She can also be seen as impatient when bored. So then you need a little spinner. She likes to feel in control. I call myself a control freak, and I know there's other control freaks in here because it takes one to know one, so I know them too. And everybody can't be in control all the time, so you learn that, hey, they've got good ideas, and listen to them, and you'll have a bigger, better third. I measure success by achievements and success, and I'm motivated by challenges. If you say something won't work, I'll prove to you that it will work. At work, she displays more concern for results than relationships, and she does not easily share her feelings. I do share my feelings, although I can't always articulate what I'm feeling at the moment. I knew it if I was angry, but if I were feeling sad or happy or glad, and when people ask me, "How do you feel?" I always say, "Zippy and zesty," which tells my brain to be zippy and zesty. So I do that as much for me as uplifting the person who has asked me. And my pace is fast and decisive. I say, start fast and finish strong. That's my motto. And I like a busy, efficient, structured, and formal environment. Sometimes when you can understand where the other person is coming from, you can avoid arguments. I have a habit of interrupting, of finishing your sentence for you. And one of my nieces was telling something, and her sister finishes everyone's sentence. And she said, "She was trying to tell my story. I could tell it better than she did." And so she's a strong-willed person too, and one of my favorite nieces that I have. So it's not all that bad, because a lot of times if there's an emergency, we say, "Do this, do that, do this." And other people are twiddling their thumbs. "Oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And to give you a good example of that, when New York City, when the Twin Towers were bombed, Mayor Giuliano had already had an emergency, the fire department knew what to do in a big emergency, had no idea that the Twin Towers would have been that emergency, but they were right there, zip, zip, zip. And he had order restored pretty quickly. People got out of buildings faster. When they had the big hurricane in New Orleans, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know to get out of town. They didn't know to leave their homes. And that to me shows a big difference in being prepared, knowing, finding out what could happen, and having plan B. To me, I like being direct, and in Ethel Cotton's conversation course, she tells you how to direct ragbag conversations so you don't have to listen to useless ragbag conversations about the weather or without bringing something interesting into that. So I say, learn your communication style, use it to your advantage, and learn from it. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Carol Cormalik. I would now ask the timer to give us 1 minute of silence for the evaluator to evaluate Carol's speech. Thank you and welcome back. The second speech of the day is going to be given by me. I'm going to be speaking from the Advanced Manual, Persuasive Speaking. It is project number 4, Addressing the Opposition. I will be speaking on a controversial topic, and I hope to do so in an educational and not an adversarial manner. Bless you. I love stories. And maybe it's because I'm Irish, but I like to tell stories and I love to listen to really good ones. When I was a kid, I loved reading biographies. And long story, of course, I won't go into details, but just suffice it to say that when I was a kid, I had a lot of time to read, but not so much anymore. So now I love to listen to biographies, particularly historical biographies. I like to find out the truth. And I recognize that the truth is always a matter of perspective, depending upon who's telling it. That even if you put everyone's perspective of the story together, like a disco ball with all those images, it would never equal God's truth, which of course encompasses everything for all eternity, beyond human, beyond all the stars and all of existence. So let's just talk about the truth in a relative perspective from one person's point of view. I am also not a big fan of politics because I feel that no matter what the media is giving us, it is only really a compilation of points of view that really don't tell the truth. But historical biographies give a closer version, in my mind, of at least where they were coming from. So I have listened to Secretaries of State Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice, Madeleine Albright, Hillary Rodham Clinton, and perhaps others who were Secretaries of State. Now this is where the controversy comes, so breathe. I am now listening to James Comey, A Higher Loyalty. Now, just in case you've been under a rock or really as sort of a hermit in the past couple of years, James Comey was the FBI director and most recently relieved of his duties by President Trump. He was also the Attorney General, the U.S. Deputy Attorney General under President George W. Bush. He was the U.S. Attorney General in New York after 9/11. He was called back after 9/11 into New York. And the cases that he's worked on have been, he did not flaunt authority. He was looking to find those who flouted it. He did not brag, in my mind, from the way it sounded, he did not brag. He explained in very erudite, in very clear words, his point of view of why he did it, when he did it, and exactly what the background was. Now, Democrats and Republicans in the United States have very strong opinions these days, in my mind, at least when I listen to the media. and sometimes when I talk to my friends on the various different sides of the political spectrum. But once again, I believe that there is one truth and only one truth, and none of us know it. As my mother said when I'd ask her tough questions, when you die and go to heaven, you'll find out, but you won't care by then. Some of the things that he has covered, some of the controversial topics that he has covered, were he prosecuted the mafia, Gambino family, if I may stand corrected, Martha Stewart, and he explains why he prosecuted Martha Stewart when others perhaps might not have been. And I'll tell you the cliff notes, it is because she lied and was caught in a lie. What she did was not so egregious, but it was because she lied under the investigation that was her, I believe she had a fine. Had she told the truth, apologized, repaid, they would not have prosecuted, based upon the standards of the FBI at the time. He also investigated torture under the Abu Ghraib scandal, let's call it that, and also electronic surveillance, and ran into some political issues under President Bush's presidency because he took a stand against renewing those practices. And also, of course, the Russian investigation or meddling, should I say potential? I think it's pretty much proven, meddling in the U.S. election in 2016. And, of course, the email server of Henry Rodham Clinton. I would like to ask you to consider, just consider, listening to these people's story. Now, I won't try to convince you, because I know that sometimes when you have very strong opinions, it's painful to hear anybody who might oppose your point of view. But for those who have an open mind and who are willing to hear a different point of view, if it doesn't upset your stomach, then I would certainly suggest that you take a listen. It comes from the local library, and no cost, no profit to the author. And thank you very much for your time. I will ask, please, 1 minute of silence for the evaluator to evaluate the speaker. Thank you so much, Mr. Tomer. Aaron's filling in as a timer today, and I'm very grateful. I would now like to invite our general evaluator up for this section of the meeting. He is Sean Gallagher, who is also our president for our club, Toastmasters Club. Please welcome Sean Gallagher.
Thanks, Madam Toastmaster. So we're now in the evaluation portion of the meeting, which means we give and get feedback, which is very important in Toastmasters. Some would say, Carol, that it's one of the most important things that Toastmasters does. So keep that in mind as we go through this session. I'm going to bring up the evaluators for the speakers. For the first speech, which happened to be Carol, we're going to have Suzanne Wittrock come up and evaluate her. Suzanne, would you like to come up and deliver an evaluation?
So, Carol Kormalik, on your speech, I love the idea to hear about different communication styles. I never really thought much about this before. So this was a really great introduction to it. And I really like the comparison that you had about the ugly face and how time stands still, or gazing at a face and time is like floating by. I'm like, wow, yeah, what a great way of showing that. And you made me laugh too, so that's good. And we learned a lot about your personality. I learned a lot more today than I've known in the past about you. Didn't know you just wanted to, this headstrong woman. That's nice. When you were talking about 9/11 there, that part with the fire department, you kind of lost me a little bit there. I wasn't sure where that came from all of a sudden, what that had to do with the story. Maybe it was just me. I don't know if other people felt that way, but I got lost a little bit in there. You spoke very loud and clear. I always liked that about you. Your eye contact is always very, very good, and your confidence up here. I'd love to hear more about communication styles, that's for sure. And I think you give us some food for thought on how to speak. Thank you.
Nice job. And now to evaluate our second speaker, who was Veronica, will Angel Lirriman come up and evaluate Veronica. Did I get it right? Lirriman?
Good.
Okay.
My husband pronounces it different.
Does he?
Yeah, and it was his first, right? So my husband says Lerman. Kind of like a slurred. So well, maybe
Okay.
it's just his beer. I don't know.
So he does 1.5, he does 2.5 syllables, not
Something
three.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The rest of us are Lurermen. So. Veronica, very nice speech. You were to give a speech about a controversial subject. I can't think of anything more controversial these days than politics. It's a very good choice. How convincing was the speaker's presentation on her viewpoint? It was very convincing. I like how you named several of our secretaries of state, not just one, and they spanned both parties. I also liked how you chose current events as well as historical events to reference. So it was very nice. I like how you chose politics as your topic because it is such a big topic these days. In past, I've gone years without really thinking about politics. They just go on as normal. Everybody expects it. Some people are some people are enjoying it, but we're very polarized these days. So it's a great topic. I felt you were sincere. You had great eye contact with everyone in the room. You spanned the room, so everyone, I felt like you were talking to everyone and still just talking to me at the same time. Your voice was great. You had good volume and inflection and pause. You used pauses very nicely. I want to read the book that you referenced, the James Comey one, at least start there and go back, maybe capture some of the others. I would have liked you to take a stand, one side or the other. I like this or I don't like this, just to get that controversy a little bit more out there. Doesn't mean you had to agree with that side. I did this project recently and I chose minimum wage, to raise it, to not raise it. And I tried to argue the opposite of how I felt. It was pretty interesting. A very nice job. I think that was it. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Angel. Appreciate you stepping in for that evaluation. Let's call for the reports now from the different roles throughout the meeting. We'll start with the grammarian owl counter. Carol Cormelink, would you like to come up and give us some of your findings?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. I actually didn't realize that I was also counting the ahs and yums until I got down to table topics. Suzanne, so far you're winning with the word of the day. You used it 3 times, the 2 words of the day. That was very good. So until I got down to table topics, I didn't have who was doing what. And Aaron, you did use the word of the day one time. I thought that was very good. And I loved your imagination, and you can think quickly on your feet. That was very good. Veronica used the word of the day once and used some bigger words like egregious and several bigger words like that you used, a lot of different words. I heard 3 so's, 2 uhs, 3 ands, and 1 but. I heard 2 double clutches. You started to say P-R-O-S, and it was persecuted is what you ended up saying. And then I would. I heard 2 double clutches. That was very good for coming up with a controversial speech like that. As general evaluator, Sean, I only heard 1 so. You usually don't say any. I almost said so. You usually you don't say, and I was glad to hear that you just had one. As the evaluator for Carol, Suzanne, I only heard one of the us. And when Angel was doing evaluator number 2, I was writing her things in number 1. I don't know how much of this was you and how much was Susan, but I know that Susan only had one that I had heard of and used a word of the day. So there I am using so. I caught myself in one. Angel, I heard one I heard you used different adjectives. You said she had a very nice speech. She had a great voice and good pauses. So you used different adjectives instead of using, we had a nice day, the people were nice, the food was nice, and everything was nice. I was glad to see that you varied your vocal variety that you had, your word choice. And that is all that I have come up with. I didn't hear anything for me, except that one so.
Madam Grammarian. Next, we'd like to get the timer report. Aaron, would you like to deliver that for us?
I would. Thank you. Thank you. The timing was very good. We strive to speak concisely when we're trying to be effective communicators. The first speaker, Carol, was at 5 minutes, so that's well under. The second speaker was at 6 minutes, so that she had a minute to spare. Most of the evaluations were way under. Appreciate the comprehensive evaluation of the second speaker. And the table topics were ranged from 1 to 2 minutes. So great job keeping it concise. Thank you.
Aaron, when you say the evaluators were way under, do you have times you can present to them?
I didn't.
Okay. All right. So for future, if we just write down times, that would be great. Next, we will, oh, it's my portion. Okay. As general evaluator of the meeting, it's a challenge when things change for the meeting throughout a week and at the last minute. So I know you were constantly updating Veronica, and I appreciate your effort, because Phil was going to speak, Phil wasn't going to speak, Dave was going to be here, Dave wasn't going to be here. And keeping track with that is a lot of work, especially at the last minute. What I'm not used to, and this club does, is, Carol, you print the agenda. I'm a big proponent of using Free Toast Host and updating that 100% as long as it matches the agenda. I'd like to see our club, all Toastmasters, coordinate better on that, that whatever we know is the very last portion will make it to the printed agenda. It's cumbersome for all of us, including the people doing it, to try to coordinate that as we're trying to start the meeting. So if there's a better way to do that, I don't know. I would have no trouble recommending and being a part of the Toastmaster finishes the agenda and creates the agenda. I don't know if we want to bring that up at some point, but it alleviates you from having to recreate what was done, and it lets the very last minute of whatever Veronica or the Toastmaster had is completed 100% online, and they finish up from there. Suggestion we can take offline, just a thought process to not have to go through that each and every meeting. And I'm not going to be a benevolent dictator and say we have to. I'm putting it out as a suggestion. Table topics was very interesting because you gave us not just a thought, but an object to hold and decide exactly how we're going to present it. Everybody presented in their fashion something they wanted to explain to the aliens. Some of us were a little more verbal and vocal and feedback-ish when somebody was giving their table topics, but he took it in stride. So I appreciate you having a good sense of humor when I maybe hammered you a little more than I needed to. I'd like to see us do those kind of things in the future. Whether it's an object, whether it's a different twist to table topics, it keeps it fresh. I think we all enjoyed it. It was a different twist, And as an audience member, it was fun watching people having to come up with that. Aaron, a couple of things for you as a guest, but you've been to Toastmasters before, as a guest to step up right away and do timing. We appreciate that. You did a great job when you came up as timer explaining why it's important to time and why it's important to keep in segments. So I appreciate that. And then your creative description of the item, because honestly, the audience being aliens didn't know. And it reminds me of a show from years ago. I'm aging myself. Okay. It was a game show where you'd come up with an object and you would describe it, but you had to lie about it, and only one person told the truth. And I can't remember it, but that's an interesting approach as well. Anyway, I won't digress on that for too long. Other than that, I appreciate having two speakers. That's one very strong and fantastic thing about this club. We had 0 speakers when I checked the agenda at 3 or 4 o'clock, whatever it was. And when I sent you an email that Dave won't even be here to fill one of the roles, but the two of you stepping up the last minute delivering is what makes this club strong. Because we had 2 speakers when 4 hours ago there's nobody on the agenda. I appreciate both of you delivering impactful speeches in that short amount of time. Carol, that means you too. I think that's all I've got as general evaluator. I'm going to turn it back to the Toastmaster for the day. Veronica.
Thank you, Sean. Mr. General Evaluator. Once again, I would like to say to the audience, we are here twice a month at Anderson Community Center. As far as I know, we are the only Toastmasters club in greater Cincinnati area that videos, that tapes their shows and plays those on local television stations as well as on YouTube. Watching yourself on TV, on video, is a great way to learn and to get perspective on how to improve. And sometimes it may be painful, but people have to watch you, so you might as well have to watch yourself. It takes a lot of strength of character to do it, but you learn a lot when you do. I would now like to turn it over to our president, Officer Sean Gallagher, and close the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. A couple things I'd like to mention. I was probably supposed to cover them in the beginning based on what the agenda says, but oh well. Well, let me get a poll. Carol, you've been to training. I've been to training. Okay. Suzanne?
Yes.
You've been?
Yeah.
Okay. As area director, can you follow up and find out when those agendas will be fed back to us? Because we're not getting credit on our DCP yet.
Yes, the agendas or the attendance?
The actual attendance. For me, I went, but I'm at 2 officers. So as president and sergeant at arms, that should count as 2. Carol going should count as 2 as secretary and treasurer. And then from there we can move on. But, yeah, Suzanne, we should also have her 1. So I don't know who to talk to. I'm going to assume you can follow up and find out when will they be posted so we get the right credit.
So I've sent the question out today because others are.
Good. Others are in the same position. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So you're going August 8th. You know what's coming up. Pardon me. Carol, you're going to be the overachiever and go again, it sounds like. And I think we've got everybody trained at this point then. So we did a great job, officers, to go to the training. And we can have some feedback later about what you thought about it, what we can bring from the training we learned. Our Phil Barth will compete in Chicago, International Toastmasters Conference, August 22nd and 25th. I don't remember either 22nd or 23rd is semifinals, 10 groups of 10, and then it narrows down to 1 from each of them. On the 25th, it's 10 people. He's got 2 new speeches new to this competition season. One is a jet ski one, and one is another he'd done from the past. He did a lot of work on that last speech, pardon me. I'm not sure he'll make it to our club again before that for us to see it. But if you're going, Or if you want to see it online, you can actually, I think, buy online tickets and log in and watch streaming live for some of the events. So keep that in mind as well. That's all I've got. I need to cover anything else that we didn't touch on. Say again. Oh, for us? Yeah. 7850, 5 Mile Road, Cincinnati, Ohio. Anderson Community Center, Saturday at 10 a.m. and third Saturday, 10 a.m. First Thursday, 6 p.m. Be there. We're done. Adjourned. I don't know what address you're talking about. What address?